Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our this year's installment of the Eastern Fellows panel. The panel's entitled Multiple Pathways to Successful Careers. So thank you all for coming on this Friday afternoon. I am not going to speak much. I'm here to moderate this event. My name is Bill Salk. I'm the provost here and a professor of political science here at Eastern. Let me just begin by briefly introducing our panelists, and then we will turn it over to questions. I will ask a series of questions and ask each panelist to respond to each question after it is asked, and then we will leave time at the end for audience to ask questions. So let me start by introducing Sean Mike, who is from the class of 1995. To his left is Raymond Hill from the class of 1983. And on the end is Charlotte Brazil, class of 1980. So let me begin by asking the first question, and then this is a fairly informal format. So let me just start, and we'll start this one with Ray. Could you please just discuss the career path that you've had since you've graduated from Eastern?
Sure. Is this coming through okay? Okay. So my career path is a little bit different. I came to Eastern after a short time in the Air Force, enlisted. So once I left Eastern, degree in math, I joined a small company out of New London, MaxC Limited, run by Kevin Logan, another Eastern alumni, but commissioned into the Air Force. So I actually had an Air Force career. I'm a retired Air Force officer, spent 23 years on active duty. Along the way, I ended up teaching at a place called the Air Force Institute of Technology. The Air Force saw fit to send me off for a PhD. I went to The Ohio State. This was back in the dark days when they weren't beating Michigan. Nowadays, it's a little better place to be. But with the PhD, I went to go teach at Abbott. It turned out I liked it. When I retired about 15 years ago, I stayed in academia. Did some time at Wright State University, and now I'm a professor at the Air Force Institute of Technology, where I work with a lot of young Air Force officers, do a lot of work in the area of statistics, data analytics, big data sets, design of experiments, and some mathematical modeling and combat modeling. So it's a very different career path, but all started here. Is that what you're looking for? Yeah.
Great, thank you. Sean?
I left Eastern in '95, and I took a job at the Alternate Incarceration Center. So my major was applied social relations, and I'd focus on criminal justice. And I worked with kids about my age that were on parole or probation. And I was a domestic violence counselor, and I didn't enjoy that much, because I didn't know how to deal with people that were perpetrators of domestic violence, and I would make them angrier, and that wasn't good for anybody. And I had a great mentor there, and she said, you should go ahead and look into being a social worker for the state of Connecticut. Work with children, you love children. So I took a job at Department of Children and Families here in Willimantic. It used to be over where, I don't even know what's over there now, 1320 Main Street. Is Legend still around? You know where that place is? Yes, no? I know what I'm talking about. It was like a bar, restaurant, so it was over there. And then I moved over to the new building they had over here, and I did that for 14 years. I loved being a social worker, but I worked really, really hard, and as I was having a family, I wanted to explore other options. So I opened a real estate company, which I knew nothing about. I got a job as a real estate agent, and I just started interviewing as many people as I could about what they were doing, and the person that owned the company there wanted me to partner with them, and I decided, why would I give them half? I wanted to go, I went on my own. And then I ran a construction company for a while, accumulated a lot of rental properties. In 2008, I got a life insurance license. I left the state. I was working there for 13 years. My mother thought I had a breakdown. She wanted to know why I would quit the state, because that was the best job. I mean, it was a good job. It was a very good job. But I just wanted to go do something else. That's all. I just wanted to do something that was entrepreneurial. And opened my own company in 2013. We have a couple of companies. I have a waste management company we own in Connecticut, Connecticut Affordable Waste. Family First Life's the name of the company that we got. We got 5,000 or so agents across the country. We're in most states. And I love what I do. It's kind of like being a social worker with life insurance. And I love helping people. And I really, that's my career path. So I was a social work major to, I guess, being fully in business, which is still about people. So.
Thank you. Charlotte?
My immediate job out of college was babysitting on weekends, the barter for my car, and substitute teaching. And shortly thereafter, I got a job with the state of Connecticut and the Department of Income Maintenance, which was joint with DCF, where we provided welfare, food stamps and welfare. I was working there. I worked there for about 5 years, and during that time, I obtained an MBA. While I was obtaining the MBA, my father saw an advertisement in the paper for FBI agents specifically to looking and recruiting females, and he thought that'd be a great idea. And my response was, I would never get in, I'd never get hired. And his response was, not with an attitude like that. First lesson learned, you have to believe in yourself. So he literally, actually kind of interesting, drove me to my interview because I was pretty quiet at that time in my life. I ended up getting hired. No, in between, I worked for in Richmond, Virginia for the Hartford Insurance while the application for the FBI was pending, which took 2.5 years to go through the process between application and full background. And in December 1987, I became an FBI agent and had the career of a lifetime experience. Was there for 26 years until I retired in 2013 because we have mandatory retirement at the age of 55. And after about a couple of months of doing nothing, I was like, this is not going to work. And in between, I had actually obtained a second master's to have my options open in case I wanted to teach. Because toward the end of my career with the FBI, I was an investigator, special agent, and did the crime scenes, but I also started to do some training. And I love being with students, so I became an adjunct teacher at St. Leo University and was hired by them in 2014 in the criminal justice program. So I do that today as well as a little entrepreneur. I have a private investigative business and work with selective clients because I love putting that piece of the puzzle together.
I'm going to go off script a little and hope Joe doesn't stand up and yell at me. One of the things we talk about to our students, I was a faculty member here for 18 years before I took this position, is that you don't know what's going to happen. And you need to think about that while you're here, right? So you're here, you're in the liberal arts core, you're taking those courses, you're in your major, you're learning about that discipline, but you really don't know where you'll be 20 years from today. And I think if each of you could just reflect, none of you probably thought when you were here at Eastern that you would be where you are right now. Could you just talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think that's, I don't think there's many people who can predict where they're going to be. An exception would be my daughter. We all knew from 8 years old she was going to be a high school principal. But I think in general, we just take things as they come. I mean, I came here at Eastern, studied math, had no idea what I was going to do. You know, after a while, I figured, well, I'll just go to the insurance companies. It's Connecticut, and I'll work in Hartford, be actuarial. But we had other opportunities came up. So you don't know where you're going, but I think what you can do is you can always make the best of your current situation. Always keep an ear out, an eye open for other opportunities, particularly if they're interesting to you. Have dedication in your current task, along with a little, I don't know the word, but continuity, so that you're not jumping all over the place. You know, finish up your tasks, and then just move to something new when it feels right and all the information tends to support that. So in my particular case, I did not believe that I would be in Dayton, Ohio as a professor teaching. When I was 21 years old, I figured I would spend my whole life in Franklin, Connecticut doing something there in that area. But I always took the opportunities, thought hard about where they're going, and just made the best of it. And, you know, fortunately, I can look back and say that they may not have been the decisions I wanted to make, but they ended up being the decisions I had to make. So it all worked out pretty well. So I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at, but it's definitely not where I expected to be when I was 21 years old, starting Eastern Connecticut.
No, I never thought I would. I mean, if you asked me when I was a senior here what I'd be doing in my life, I would never have said I'd be doing this. I just would not have. But what did happen, and I urge everybody to do this, whatever age you're at, everything I did was from somebody I previously knew. I got my job at the state of Connecticut because I played ball for a guy, and he happened to work there, and that's how I got my job. You know, when I got involved in real estate, it's because I had a really good friend of mine and somebody I worked for at UPS when I was in college. I mean, everywhere I went network with people, and I also don't burn bridges. I've worked at a lot of places, and unless they do something terrible to me, and I have a lot of friends I've made over the years. Business is not personal. I launched my life insurance career because I knew somebody was in life insurance, and I got my very first life insurance contract. So when you decide to go out on your own, it's hard to find a contract. I found a contract, so I used to play football with a guy who knew somebody else whose dad was a high school football coach in Texas, and I called him up and said, I want to meet with you. Can I fly you to Connecticut? And he's like, why would I ever do that? And I said, I know Cammie. Do you know Cammie? He said, I know Cammie very well. He said, I'm going to call Cammie. If Cammie tells me to do it, I'll do it. And 2 hours later, he called me back and said, you don't need to fly me there. I'll fly myself there. I'll be there tomorrow. I need to meet with you. So I never believed I would be here, but I've always, through the course of my lifetime, I knew what I didn't know. I came here by myself. Eastern wasn't just a school to me. They were my parent. And I left my mom's house when I was young, and I lived with friends, and then I came here. I love my mom. She just couldn't, it's probably me, but so when I came here, it was everything. Living in low rise my first year and off campus those years, my friends became my siblings. But I never thought I would have run any companies. Being in charge or responsible for thousands of people is humbling, scary, and sometimes like, this is kind of weird. I hope they don't figure out I don't know what I'm doing yet or don't completely know what I'm doing. I meet with guys at Dot Hill all the time, actuaries, and I'm like, stop, just don't explain it to me. I don't need to understand it. Just make sure it's profitable for all of us. And I've learned to network with people. So no, I never believed I would have been, ever.
Yes, I would echo these gentlemen. I would never, in my wildest dreams as a young student here, a youngster, believe that I would be in the FBI. In reality, I didn't even think women were FBI agents, and the ones that I knew were either accountants or CPAs. So, yeah, that was shocking to me. The lesson I learned from that was to listen to people who may have suggestions and are encouraging you. They may see a talent in you that you don't see in yourself. And that all along, as making that decision from a female perspective, when I was deciding, when the job offer came through, I'm like, this is scary. I'm going to move away. There's a weapon. No one in my life was in law enforcement. They were nurses. It was a different walk. And I was doing the pros and cons, good decision making that you make, and I read an article in a paper, a little filler that said, when men make decisions, they look at what they gain. And women look at decisions, we look at what we're losing, what we're giving up. And that's what I was doing. I was like, I'm going to move, I'm going to have to do this. And that was diminishing my risk-taking. And literally that article, I'm like, I have to do this. I can't look back and say I coulda, shoulda, woulda. So, and it wasn't forever. I knew if I wasn't successful, I had a great support base, I would stand on my feet and I would learn from the lessons even if I failed. I didn't fail. I was very successful. I had a career that I absolutely loved and would recommend, and I'm always recruiting people. You can be a good FBI agent. All walks of life could have a job with the FBI. So that's where my journey came to because of those choices and those thoughts that I had.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask Sean to start with this question. You're here today because you have been designated as Eastern Fellows, which is a tribute to the successful careers that you've had. And so I wonder if you can reflect on something that happened at Eastern that isn't necessarily primarily responsible for your success, but may have contributed to your success. It may be a mentor, it may be an experience you had, but could you talk to our students who are here today and might want to seek out something similar?
Yeah, and I've spoken about how I switched majors and some things that happened to me there, but I had a few professors, and I was talking about, and I always got Glenn Nilsson confused with Andy, is that right? It's been a long time ago. And I remember being in my first social work class. I had taken business class in my first semester, and I remember we were supposed to get up and talk about cultures and subcultures, you know. And all these people were really excited about it. And it's not that I wasn't excited about it, I just didn't know any of the people that were in my class. The people I had this previous semester were there, nobody I played ball with was in my class. I remember getting up in front of the room and he stopped me like 3 or 4 minutes into it. And just stopped. And he was like, he just started challenging the heck out of me. You're like, how does that make sense? And do you care about what you're talking about? And if you're saying that, why? Back it up. And because I was challenged, maybe he was a lot smarter than I thought he was. I knew he was smart. I just stepped up because I didn't want to be challenged. And I didn't want to lose. And I didn't want to fail. You know, so I literally just started discussing it back with him. And he's like, that's the passion I want you to talk about things with. And I've just never forgotten that. A lot of what I do is talking in front of people on a daily basis, wherever I am. And the experiences I learned here, because I didn't have that growing up. Nobody sat me down at dinner and said, and I'm not, listen, people go through real stuff in life. I didn't go through much, believe me. But I just didn't have, I was looking for that mentorship and structure. And I got it from coaches, but sometimes the things they tell you to say you can't say in public or in front of a big group. So I really think when I started my major, I fell in love with social work that day. I realized how much he wanted to help me and how much I wanted to help everybody else, and I certainly knew I could fit in and do it. And I felt like I was challenged more than I was. We've heard this a lot today from people. I wouldn't have gotten challenged like that in a classroom of 300 people. We probably wouldn't even have done that. We just would have taken a few exams and called it a day. But there was so much interaction because it was probably a class of 25 to 30 students. And we all knew who each other were. We all knew our strengths and weaknesses. We were challenged very much. My social work experience here was raw and real. And that's what I needed it to be. So that would be a specific example, and I think the rest of it helped shape who I am in business today.
Charlotte?
I was the student who came and sat in the back of the room and didn't want to be seen. I wanted to just get through, do my good paperwork. I was pathetically shy, believe it or not. I actually would pay my brother to order pizza because I wanted to make the phone call. I have a twin sister who's here. She was the gabber. I was the quiet one. I would hide out. I didn't want to be seen, but my instructors saw me. Professor Kobledick, Professor Anderson, they saw me, they called me out, they guided me, they mentored me. They brought this student who came in as a young 18-year-old, very quiet and shy, out and encouraged me so I could see my strengths and what I had to offer. These same instructors were with me after I graduated. Dr. Kobledick remained a long-term friend, and he helped me, encouraged me to continue my education, encouraged me to take risks. So it was a long listening influence, and I feel like I went from this wallflower to being an FBI agent, teaching internationally because of what started at this university.
I think, well, I was same thing, shy starting off, but I think in my particular case, it was just building the confidence that I could do these things. I mean, I struggled my first semester here, commuting, working full-time, and they tolerated this guy who was pumping gas from 4 in the morning to 8, so he can come to school from 8 to whenever. But really, I think the influence for me came years later when I got a chance to teach something I never, ever, ever dreamed about. That when I started molding the kind of professor I wanted to be, I thought back to, you know, we had it right here at Eastern. You got small schools, you know the professors, they're teaching the classes. I never went by and had a door closed. So I think the big influence I took was the way I am now as a professor, mentor, advisor. They know they can always come to me because my door is always open regardless of the problems, and I've helped people both academically and personally, and I think that's the one takeaway I got was that type of philosophy here at Eastern with that small school feel. So I've tried to embrace that, and that's kind of the environment I am in now. So I think with me, it was a delayed effect.
So Charlotte, as we move to the next one, we'll start with you. Mindful that Eastern is Connecticut's public liberal arts university, and there are only 27 of us across the entire country, and we stress the ability to think critically and write well, could you discuss the advantages that you had throughout your career from graduating from a public liberal arts college, particularly in the economy today or the economy that our students are going to face when they graduate?
There's no question it's required in today's world. Just Tuesday in my class in St. Leo University where I teach, a Pasco County Sheriff's Office detective came to speak to as a guest speaker, and he talked about his hiring process. And the very first thing he does is look at how a person writes, and especially with promotion, how a person writes and how hard they work. For my career as an FBI agent, a few things that this liberal arts broad information gave to me was the ability to communicate with people from all walks of life. I've been with ambassadors, presidents of universities, senators, and I've worked with people who have been involved in organized crime, who some would say come from the lower side of society. So the ability to interact with those people of different walks of life, what really struck home for me once was American history. And the history of World War I, the very first source, a cooperating witness that I met in the FBI, was a retired British soldier who was part of World War II. he was an operating source for the Communist Party for 50 years for the FBI. He was actually being paid off, and those who understand FBI history and the communists, we didn't want it in this country, so the FBI had a lot of sources. He was in the Communist Party as a source, and we sat and talked about World War I, from what I learned from Tom Anderson, about the chemicals used, the strategies. He was a British soldier who taught me that one of the combats where they combated the gas was to actually urinate in their socks because of the chemical reaction. I was able to have that conversation because I didn't just focus here. That man began to trust me. So we had a relationship because it was a rapport building. So from this liberal arts, whatever your background is, I've learned to be able to talk and communicate with them. And then to ask that follow-up question. It's the story behind the story that historians in the public government classes here have taught me.
Me? Okay, yeah, I mean, critical thinking skills, people looking for that all the time. It's a big buzzword in defense. In fact, we had a general come down. Generals are the main leaders in the military, one all the way up to 4 stars. And we had a general come down and says, do you teach critical thinking? We can't answer that because it permeates everything we do. I teach all graduate classes. You've always got to be asking why, digging deeper. The ability to communicate once you get that is absolutely critical. I'm actually seeing students do, the current students coming through, actually doing pretty good in terms of their writing ability, but it's very prose-like. What I've seen is they don't know how to get to the point. So one of the things you can do to help is learn how to think about the problem big, think about the problem little, and whittle it down and get to the point. What are the key points? And discuss those. So critical thinking and writing skills, absolutely critical. But the ability to get to your point, particularly when you're talking decision leaders, they don't have a whole lot of time. They don't want to hear all the fluff. They call it the bluff. What's the bottom line up front? If you can build those schools while you're here doing your papers, whatever, that's great. I think they call that topic sentences and introductory paragraphs. So take it to heart because it's a key skill. Hopefully that's...
I write very well. I write very well, I think, because I went here. My high school was pretty good. The reason I know I write very well is I communicate with a lot of people on a daily basis that don't write very well. So I look at what they do and I realize I write a lot better than they do. A lot of the insurance carriers I work with, when I did start working with them, they said it was a pleasure to work with us because I actually can communicate very well. And I think back, and I haven't thought about it in 20 years. I don't sit in, but I have, kids to me. They're younger, they graduated, they went to, you name it. I was reading something from this kid yesterday, he went to Duke. I said, there's no way you graduated. From Duke. Because you can't write. And he can't write. He can't communicate. So I think I got a phenomenal background here. And I think that, I think back to the internship. I've never done an internship. I did an internship my senior year. And I remember bringing back and I think she called them observations. And I had to keep this journal. And I'm like, but that happened. I know, but that doesn't tell me anything. I'm like, okay, let me rewrite it. But I'm so thankful it happened that way. So I can't speak well enough because without it, we wouldn't get anywhere. And I talk about it with my folks all the time when they're helping people in the home. The problem is if, again, not to disrespect what anybody else does, whatever else they're selling. Nobody disputes it from the FBI. You make a mistake, it's a pretty big deal. And I don't even know what Dr. Hill does, but it seems really important. It seems like it'd be really smart to do it, mathematically. And I mean that, but I know that, no different than we go out there and help people with life insurance. You can't communicate with somebody and you go ahead and don't put them in a position to protect themselves. And this prepared me very well. My daughter's going here. I couldn't be any more excited. I think the position is going to put her in. So, when you hear all that about, well, I went here and look at this school, and I have 75% of our people are college graduates, 4-year universities, and most of them are probably much more, well-known than ECSU. But I'll tell you what, I'd put mine and the other people I have, it's funny, I have 4 of my top 5 people that work with me came here. Isn't that funny? I knew them, and I reached back out many years later, and we always joke around and go, man, you guys spent a lot of money on your education, and we've done pretty well. So I can't speak enough about it.
Thank you. We'll have you start this one again, Ray. So if you think back on either your current occupation or any of the occupations that you've had throughout your career, and you use that as a backdrop, could you kind of review and reflect on what you feel are the current challenges and/or opportunities for graduates looking for work in your field or in the economy in general?
Yeah, of course, my career, I started off 23 years in the Air Force, and you're pretty much doing what they tell you to do, but I had the opportunity to do a lot of work in the analytics world. And now teaching and preparing the young officers to continue in that vein, I think the biggest challenge facing us now, and it permeates what's going on here at Eastern and every other school, is data. I mean, data permeates every single job. There isn't a job out there that you're not dealing with data. Either you're getting summaries or you're generating summaries. I mean, Sean and I were talking, you can't even look at sports anymore without seeing massive amounts of data and statistics. But as a society, many of our workers have not kept pace with data literacy. In other words, they can see this thing called a mean, they see this thing called an interval, they don't understand what that means. And I'm an editor for many journals, and I see statistics done badly by highly educated PhDs, and now we're asking people in the workforce without a statistical background, without a data background to do things. So I think across the job, whether you're in applied social relations, criminal justice, whatever the case may be, data literacy is the biggest challenge because it's everywhere now. I mean, we're putting stuff on the cloud, we're running statistics, we're looking at data definitions, we're getting great graphics. Everybody needs to know what's good and what's bad, and you don't have that unless you have data literacy. I can give you a great graphic that is pure bunk. You need to recognize that because you're going to have somebody, I'm sure Sean's run into this, you're going to have somebody pitch you a bunk deal and ask for your money. And if you're in a position to debunk that, hopefully you can do that successfully. So I would say the biggest challenge is data literacy.
I was telling some of these people earlier today, I think that a lot of what you all will do when you graduate from college, and I said this earlier, hasn't even been defined yet. And I think the biggest problem we're facing now, look at my industry, I'm in a very archaic industry. Life insurance industry is about 20 years behind everybody else, but they're starting to really pay a price for that. So for instance, a lot of what they've tried to, it's one of the last bastions of paperwork. Now everything's just about online. But I was talking to the students earlier about the fact that if you can just keep your, kind of like a football term, keep your head in a swivel and figure out what, try to think that many years ahead. Because I envision myself in 5 years having, 3 or 4 times the staff. Most of them are probably going to work out of their house. They're going to have to figure out what they're really good at, and a lot of it's going to be intangible to me. They're going to be pulling data out of the sky. I'm actually sometimes online, I'm blown away. I'm not anymore because we've learned so much about it. But, I think when I graduated college, I went and found a regular job. Like here's, where I was going to go and kind of here's the path I'm supposed to take. But as we continue to change and evolve, and you can't stay well out in front of it without being out there and being in it. And you're going to get left behind if you're not. I think that's the other thing that's happening. You start looking at demographics, populations. It's going to be a scary place if you don't keep up. The disparity of wealth of what it is now. If you think it's going to get better, just pay attention, look at trends. There are people who sit down and you talk about debunking ideas, and we get pitched stuff every day. And 3/4 of it doesn't make any sense. I understand it. It's not viable. It's never going to reach that stage. But I really think that there's so much. It's almost, how can I convince you that what you're learning here from the people you're learning is so progressive that you need to be on top of it? Yes, it's going to change tomorrow, and if you don't stay up with it, you're going to get left behind. Companies, it happens to companies every day, right? And it's this thing where we feel bad for them. I always laugh when people feel bad for billionaires. I think it's adorable. Like, oh my God, I can't believe Toys R Us went out of business. Yeah, I can't believe they didn't sell anything online. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, who was in charge of that? Let's keep selling out of the store, it'll work. Who was in charge of not calling Amazon and going, what can we work out? What do you need from us? What part do you want? How much do we need to pay you? But there was nobody in there that said, you know what? That's what I think I like the most. When I sit in that luncheon earlier, listen to Dr. Nunez, the way she runs it, how many qualified people you all have around, not just the person in charge. Takes a very good leader to go, you know what, I want to surround myself with really good men and women that know as much, if not more than me in certain areas, because that should be the job, right? I mean, if I'm going to preach actuarial science to Ray, we're in trouble. You know, and I think that you just have to work hard to stay ahead. And when somebody says something that doesn't make any sense, challenge it. We've evolved as a company because my younger people have said, that doesn't make any sense, Sean. And they go, explain it to me. And they do. And they'll give me the data on it, and they do. And then I go, that doesn't make any sense. We need to change. We've stayed alive because I've listened to people that have a better pulse on what's going on than I do. And, you know, I bet there's a lot of people that sat around in some of these companies that went, you know, mom and pop stores are going out of business. Yeah, because they charge too much for a screwdriver. I want to go to Home Depot and buy it for 99 cents. I don't want to buy it from Millie's hardware store for $4.75. Because if you start pricing, you go to anybody. When anybody comes to me and pitch anything, my deal is, can you sell it for cheaper? Can you get the product? What can you get the cost down to? We have to be competitive. So challenge it. Use your education. Speak up. You'll sit in a room one day, and 2 months later, the realize it was a bad idea. You'll all be out of a job. So I just think, for me, things are changing so fast. You got to be the catalyst for change, not the victim that it runs over. So.
Like all industries, criminal justice is experiencing change. There's a big movement for reform. Being in law enforcement or any career within the criminal justice system is demanding. It takes a lot of your time. There are incredible opportunities. Last year, the FBI did not meet its quota in hiring. They're anticipating to hire 900 agents. And people think, hey, being an FBI is great. Part is the negative press and the perception, but also local criminal justice, they're not meeting their goals. And part of the issues is people don't want to make that sacrifice because you have to work weekends and holidays. You will get called out on Christmas to respond to something. So it's a different way of life because there's a stronger commitment to the community, and it's a service job, even though it is not considered that typically. There's two roles of criminal justice, public service and crime fighters, and public service is just as important as the crime fighters. We need an educated force. The force is changing. Before there wasn't required of education to be law enforcement. Now we have cybercrime. We have to analyze the data he's providing. Terrorists are attacking us from overseas. We're not in isolation anymore. A variety of crimes are occurring that require analysis of healthcare fraud, white collar, sophisticated accounting frauds. Those are challenges, and people don't want to explore those as much as they used to in the past. Plus, to be honest with you, part of the problem is drug usage. The policy for the FBI and any law enforcement is that you cannot use any drugs within 3 years of being hired. Some states allow you to smoke marijuana, but if you apply for federal law enforcement and most local law enforcement, you're not getting in. Okay? Financial, they look at your financials. Are you responsible? So there's that background. I think, Ray, you probably had a top secret clearance.
I'm actually under investigation for a new one now.
Yeah, it comes up every 5 years. So that eliminates a lot of people. You got to have a clean life. Now, does that say if you made a mistake, you're going to be completely eliminated? No. But those are the challenges as a recruiter in law enforcement they are facing. So what does it mean to you as a student? That's an opportunity. You do what they need to do as far as keeping yourself clean, having good financials, get an education. Those jobs are there. And when I got bored at the FBI, I just went to another squad. I didn't have to go to another unit. You know what? I'm burnt out from investigating drug dealers. Can I look at terrorists or human trafficking or go overseas and teach for a while? Like, we have a world within our world. And to tell you the truth, most people respect us. So that's a good feeling. We get things done. So the opportunities are there, but it's choices that you make to take advantage of those opportunities in criminal justice.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask my last question, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the group here. And the final question, and we'll have Sean start with this one. If you have one piece of career advice that you wish you had received, could you share that with us today?
Man, I wish I had received, and it's you know, it's cliche, and I know that. What I've learned about business over all these years is it is pretty simple, you know, and it is pretty corny what you do. It's not that hard. It's kind of like make a bunch of layups and you'll be all right. I wish somebody had really told me, sat me down and let me know that if I really want to go to put the work in, like truly, like if I really decided that I wanted to outwork everybody, that I could probably be as successful as anybody else. And I think I'm probably, part of me knew I could work hard. And I mean, I always worked hard. Part of me knew I could be semi-successful, but you know, I didn't know until my late 30s that most people out there, and I don't want to disrespect anybody, but most people out there don't work hard. They don't. I mean, you talk about leave this country and go some other places. You want to see people work? Go to a farm in Des Moines, Iowa. And go with them for 16 hours a day. And do it 7 days a week. You know, all I'm saying is, you'll be like, we're broke. Yeah, you're broke for being in America. Go somewhere else. So I think a lot of people just take everything for granted. And regardless of what you may lack in any part of your life. You know, I came in here seriously as a student lacking in a lot of ways. I don't say this to be funny, but there's no, you know, you love math? Math didn't love me, you know? I mean, I did fun, but I wasn't, you know, statistics, that was bane of my existence, my graduate studies. It was my thesis, and oh my God, you know, and I put the work in, I got through it, but if you really will just grab a hold of it, you really can, and it's not, you can do whatever the heck you want if you're willing to put the work in. You ain't got the money, go work while you're studying. Don't know how to do it, go figure it out. I was telling these guys earlier, go ask a bunch, people are dying to help you. There's a lot of good people out there that want to help you. And the biggest part for me is get over yourself. Can't be judged by anybody. Just go to work and put the work in and believe that you can, man. That's 90% of the battle.
Well, I would strongly echo Sean that you have to work hard. When we have done crime scene investigations or all-day exercises digging up human remains with USF and St. Leo, literally students have dropped out. They're like, we don't want to work this hard. Well, if they don't want to work that hard, you're not going to be successful. And I think you're all here who have that skill. You're balancing jobs and education. So on that note, I would like to say to you, believe in yourself, believe in the goodness of others, do what you love, and at the end of the day, have fun.
Those two are tough to follow. I guess the only thing I'd say to my younger self is, beyond what's already been said here, is just believe in what you're doing. I think one of the problems I had as a young kid is just not believing it was okay to enjoy working hard. I mean, I worked hard. I worked for my dad's construction company and all that. I always enjoyed working hard, but taking pride in working hard. And I think the other thing would be embrace the community you're in. I mean, I kind of was insular when I was here. I came to class. I knew some of my classmates, but that was about it. You got a great community here. There's great outreach. You got the city of Willimantic. I understand the relationships with Willimantic now are a lot better than they were way back. So I think what I tell my younger self is take pride in what you're doing, enjoy what you're doing, and embrace the community a little bit more. But other than that, pretty hard to follow those two guys.
Thank you. All right, so questions from everyone, please.
I have a question, and I'm kind of an older student, so this might help some of the younger ones. I myself, as a parent coming back to school, what would you say to the young kids who do face trials? I mean, I already know my 5-year plan, because obviously I don't have many 5 years left. But when obstacles come up, I mean, I have 2 children with special needs, and I still try to get going, but what would you say to them when they face their obstacles and they really feel like they can't go on? I mean, I know to go and find resources and stuff, because I'm a mom, and I don't want to show my kids that, hey, mom's, you know, going to drop out or fail, but what would you say to the younger kids? What do they do when they just feel like they don't want to do this anymore? I mean, what would you give them for encouragement?
For help.
Social worker question first.
You know,
Well, we think.
here's the advice I give a lot. I hire a lot of young kids who are still in college. I mean, they're, you know, to have a life insurance license, you need to be 18. You need to, you know, you can't, your criminal record, you can't really have one. I mean, it's, you know, it's pretty unforgiving, the State Department of Insurances, but they're young. And so they kind of make quite a lot of stuff. Hey, you know, I got this. And my answer always is, you know, here's the problem. At the end of the day, you only have two choices, right? When you're backed into a corner, there's really two choices. There's fight or flight. That's it. And you're going to be defined early on. It's a slippery slope. You choose flight. You can spend a life of flight. And I'd rather just fight back, regardless of what it is. And you know, is it a test? Of course it's a test. And I also try to look at perspective. I mean, there's people that are going through a lot more than you. And you know, I don't apologize for stuff. I know what I believe. I know what my faith is, and I just know that, you know, be careful what you complain about. You might get a lot more to complain for. So it's not that I'm ever minimizing what they're going through. I just want to give them some perspective. And I think that I'm there for you as long as you're fighting through it. If you choose to flight, I can't help. And you know, standing up and doing the right thing is hard. You know, fighting through battles is hard. But you know, sometimes I say that's the biggest problem you got when you get down on your hands and knees and be thankful. So that's the best advice I would give.
I'd like to add that to that. Sometimes, even myself, when I get frustrated at life, I look at myself and say, is this a first world problem or a real problem? Because breaking my refrigerator going out of work is an inconvenience, but I still get up every day and I can feed myself. And I've also learned, especially from law enforcement, because we don't do this well and we need to do it better, that when things accumulate, we need to ask for help. There's a lot of resources out there. There's no shame in asking for help, whether it be mental illness or any challenge you have. People are available. You look at this community in Eastern and all the resources. Those same resources are out there. So create relationships that you can turn to when it becomes overbearing. And you'd be amazed at the goodness of people.
Yeah, I think, well, first off, the fact you have a 5-year plan, good for you. I mean, that's the easiest way to get started towards success. So facing those kids, try to get them to think more of the long term, because dropping out is a short-term solution. I remember coming through school, my wife and I just got together. We've been married 35 years now. We had 2 kids. I was ready to drop out of school and make money because we were so poor. And she said, no, we got to stick it out because long term it'll pay off. So I think just helping them see past the short term, what seems to be a good solution, and to think long term for the better solution is the best you can do. And then point them to people that'll help them. Where you point them doesn't work, there will be somebody who can help. There's always help out there for folks. I don't have to deal with that a whole lot. Most of my folks are lieutenants and captains already commissioned to service, but you know, I had those cases when I taught undergraduate, and again, just trying to get them to focus on not the immediate, the future. But I'm glad to see you got a 5-year plan, not a 1-year plan. That's good.
Other questions?
What advice do you have regarding like interviews? I'm looking to go into an internship. I'm like researching about it now, and I know we have like obviously interviews and like for after like once we graduate, obviously we're gonna have a bunch of interviews. And that just nerve-wracking. So I just want to hear like what you guys have to say about that.
About interviews.
Interviews.
Advice about interviews.
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Interviews, find out where you're going, find out a little bit about them so that you have that in the back of your mind. It's not so you can drop all the knowledge you have on it, but so you can speak. I think when I interview people, I'm looking for somebody who's acting natural, not trying to put on airs. I interview a lot of potential faculty members. My immediate question is this what this person's really like, or are they putting on an act? I think people that are doing the hiring can see through the acts. Just be yourself, be natural. If you're interviewing, then you've made a commitment that you would like to have this job. By doing some research, you're showing you want the job. You'll get questions of why should we hire you? What do we think? How do you think you're going to fit? What's your worst quality? I mean, you're going to get tough questions like that, and just be honest.
I think it's all, I'm a big on presentation. You know, I think that, you know, even like you're pretty soft-spoken, or it's hard, you're over there and we're over here. But I think that, I don't think you need to walk in and try to crush somebody's hand when you shake it. I think that can be a little bit too much sometimes too. But I do think you having questions for people when you get there. You know, my daughter had an interview the other day. I mean, it was at the mall, right? And she's going, Dad, what questions are they going to ask me? I'm like, I don't know. I give her, and of course I'm playing with her, I give her some questions, and he walks her in and sits her down, and he says, I can only hire 2 people below the age of 18. Have a seat. I have 12 that are interviewing. He said, what questions do you have for me? And she was like, I'm prepared for all these questions you're supposed to ask me. What do you mean? And I was like, I like that. That's brilliant. She's like, why didn't you tell me that? I said, I didn't see it coming. I would have told you. But my point is, and I do that all the time. I've always been doing it. It's just funny we didn't talk about it. But you need to be able to ask too, because at the end of the day, I'm interviewing you, but you also should be interviewing. You're not interviewing me, but you know what I'm saying? You should be seeing if this is a good fit for you. And there's no way I possibly know everything. There's no way you know everything you need to know. So you should be able to say, can I ask you a question? Those questions should be along the lines of how accountable you really are. You're still selling, right? You're always selling. I mean, I'm selling in my sleep. You're always selling. All right, so it's hey, I had a question as far as hours, and I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing, just where you can continue to give your good attributes about yourself while you're asking me questions. So you're really tricking me into telling me more about who you are. If you do it the right way, most people don't even know you're doing it. So I think it's just you have to come in there prepared too. I mean, research ID, I think that's great to be able to say, and I always say, what do you know about the company? Well, I don't know much. I go, you came in for an interview, you don't know anything about the company. I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of people that follow us on social media. There's no way you couldn't have found out. It's not like we're not online. Can I ask you why you chose not to do that? And if they give me and go, you know what, I didn't think about doing, I'm sorry, but just come in there and be ready. And you know, and Dr. Hill's right. I mean, just be you. You know, be fallible. Nobody likes because I'm not an FBI agent, but I know this: if anybody claims to be perfect, they're sociopathic. So run away. If I'm wrong, you can tell me.
No,
But
that's right.
I haven't met a perfect person yet. So that'd be my advice.
One advice we've had to learn to give our students that they weren't aware of, so I don't mean to be insulting if I am, but dress appropriately. You don't want to go for an interview in T-shirts and pants. Dress in a business attire or appropriate for the job that you're looking for. And echo what they said, make sure you're honest. People will know, so they want the authentic you.
And be early.
Yeah.
No, I mean it. Interviews at 11, get there at 10:30, be early, be in the office, get to know the person in there. Because that's what happens a lot for me. I walk out and go, hey, what'd you think about, because I'll interview, now I have people do it in my office, but back in the day, I'd be like, Kat, what'd you think about? And they're out there for half an hour. And she'll tell me. She was very objective. Hey, this one rolled in at, 30 seconds before. This one was sitting there for 30 minutes. Asked me some questions, talked to me a little bit. This one wouldn't stop talking. You don't want anybody that never stops talking either. So, get there early and make connections.
I only knew one person who got away with interviewing in T-shirts and sandals. He was interviewing for a senior executive position in the Air Force Research Lab. He came in casual attire, took everybody aback, and he said, look, you know my resume, you know I can do this job, this is me, this is what you're going to get. Key was he was honest. He didn't try to put on airs. For him, putting on a suit was putting on airs because he was really good. But the key is he was dressed appropriately because that's how he dresses every day. I mean, when he was on faculty, he dressed in sandals and shorts. But he was honest.
Not everybody's that smart, though.
No, and he,
Y'all know who.
Everybody-
there's a reason why we called him Captain America.
And he had a resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had like half a dozen patents or something like
Yeah.
that. But the key is he backed it up with being honest. You can always pass on the best candidate if he's not part of your team, but if you know he's going to fit on the team because he was honest, then you're fine. So make sure you have those criteria covered.
And I can vouch, she was actually early to this session.
I have
She was the first
no
one in
doubt.
here, yes.
She was
She
the
was.
first one in.
No doubt.
All right, we probably have time for one more question. Oh, we could probably do two. Your hand went up first, but we won't leave you out. Go ahead.
How did you know that what you were doing with your career you were actually happy with, and it wasn't something that you were just comfortable doing, that you actually were passionate about it? I know, Sean, you mentioned that people like at your work had to tell you, like, stop doing this one thing and actually pursue what you're passionate about. So how do you take that leap from being comfortable to, like, actually challenging and doing what you think you might actually love?
For me, when it stopped feeling like work is when I knew I was doing something I loved. When I worked in the state of Connecticut at the beginning, I loved it. It didn't feel like work. I literally felt like I was going there and they were paying me and I couldn't believe it. And over the course of time, things changed a lot. We get a new governor, they'd have a new process, and I got really frustrated. Maybe I got bitter, but I don't know. But for me, when you could stay up doing what you're doing because you like it, and you want to get up early in the morning and do it again, and it almost doesn't feel like work, that you enjoy it so much, you almost kind of, I don't want to say feel guilty, but you're like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. And I think you find your niche. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm not good at, but I found that I really like trying to lead people and being in charge of certain things, not because I want to be above them, because I want to be responsible for them. And I think that you'll know, and it's hard to say until you know. You'll find it. I didn't find it until 35. you know, hopefully you find a lot earlier than I did. I mean, you know, you listen to Charlotte, and her dad did what dads did back then. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, get in the car. And brought her in and made her apply, and then it sounds like she fell completely in love with it, you know. But I think, I know it's probably a better answer, but when you know, you'll know. And if you know it's not the right thing, just keep your eyes open, your mind open, because you don't want to one day look back on your career and go, you're smart, you're going to make money no matter what you do. I tell people all the time, if you're smart and you work hard, you're going to make money. You're going to support yourself, you're going to put money away, you're going to do what you want. But you want to look back on your life and really go, man, I really was able to accomplish a lot. It'll be, I think, purely because you loved what you did.
And get through the difficult times. In the FBI, we've had different supervisors, and we had one supervisor that was a nightmare, and people hated her, and she made life miserable. That happens. People got sick because of stress from this woman. And one of my partners kept saying, this too shall pass. This too shall pass.
True.
If you walk away during those times, you may live with regret. So you have to find the balance. You also echo, you know if you love it or not. I always say, I had the greatest job in the world. How many stories can I tell about my career? And people want to listen. And so you'll know it in your bones.
Yeah, you'll know it. I mean, here I was terrified to get up and speak in front of people. It still makes me a little nervous. But after about 2 years of doing teaching on the Air Force bill, I realized I liked it. And it's the same thing. I don't think about it as work. I had previous jobs where, yeah, I got to get up, got to go to work. But I can actually bring stuff home, and when I'm relaxing doing my work. So you found that niche. You hope everybody finds the niche. You just have to keep looking. Now, I always made the most of every job. You can always love your current job, but for that job to actually come that's comfortable, embrace it when you get it. So I've been fortunate. I'm in a job I actually love and a place I like. It's got problems like every other place, but I work with a guy who's 83 years old. He still teaches a full load of classes, still writes his papers. He actually still plays basketball on Friday mornings. I'll do anything with this guy because he's my model. He still loves doing what he's doing, and as long as I'm loving what I'm doing, I'm going to keep on doing it. So I've got a few years to catch up to 83. I'm not quite there yet.
And you had a question? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
So coming from a really family-oriented background, were any of you ever conflicted, like, between pursuing, like, a very successful career or, like, starting a family or just wanting to be there at that point already? Like, was there ever any conflict between the two?
Major conflict. I mean, I grew up around my family and just down the road in Franklin, Connecticut, and I went in the military. I pulled my stepkids. They're not my stepkids. I've raised them since they're 4 and 8. But my kids, I pulled them out of every family that I knew and moved away. And when we had our own kids, they didn't grow up around their grandparents. It's extremely conflicted. But again, what were my priorities? My priorities were the family I made a commitment to, my wife that I've been committed to for 35 years, and those were first and foremost in my mind. So again, as long as you determine the person you are, what drives you, and what are your motivating factors, and live by those, then the conflicts are always there. You're always sorry I'm always sorry I didn't have my kids grow up around my grandkids. But, you know, I've got a daughter who's a principal at a high school, another daughter who's in a career she loves, and it's because we made that commitment and stuck to our guns and made the sacrifices. Every decision has a sacrifice. You just got to decide which sacrifice you're willing to make to accumulate the goals you want to achieve.
That's well said. I think one of the problems nowadays, and I don't want to disrespect anybody, and I'm definitely not judging, is a lot of people that don't go pursue anything say they scapegoat their family. I think they blame them. Like, I would do that, but I have kids. Well, A, if you love what you do, you'll be happy. B, you are obligated to take care of kids. And now, some people do. They move around the world. That's different. I've never had to do that. I've never, I couldn't sell anything outside the country, so I'm here in the country. But I like what, I was thought a lot about that when we opened this company. My son and daughter, you know, I have 4 kids between us. I have 2 stepkids too, and I have a son and a daughter. And I've worked like this since they've been little. You know, I take them and do a lot of stuff with them. We spend a lot of time doing all kinds of things together. I have a great relationship with both of them. But the one thing I hope I've taught them is a work ethic. And the last thing I'll say is that, and I referenced him yesterday. I met a while back. I met Arthur Blank. He owns the Falcons. He built Home Depot, and he's a really nice guy. He realized I have a friend of a friend of a friend, and I was at his place in Atlanta, and somebody said, "Hey, how did you and your wife get this thing rolling, this Home Depot thing?" And he said, "Well, I looked at my wife and I said, listen, for the next 3 or 4 years, I'm going to miss a lot of what we're doing. Kids are young. You're going to miss me. I'm going to miss you. But I'm doing it so the rest of our lives we can do whatever we want, whenever we want, within reason. And I'm willing to make that sacrifice. I think if you work really hard, the sacrifice isn't forever. You know, anytime you start something new, if you're working 2 jobs, it's a sacrifice. If you're a parent of a couple kids, you go back to school, it's sacrifice." And she, you know, jokingly said, "I don't have all the time." Like, it's not a sacrifice for the next 20 years. It's a sacrifice for this window to get my degree and go get a different job. And those sacrifices are short. They seem like they're forever until you get into them. And then you already buzz through it. And I've never had one kid come to me and go, "You know what I don't like about my mom and dad? They worked really hard." I just, you know, but I have a lot of and I have a lot of agents that I hire, and they go, "Well, I would work harder if, you know, I didn't have all these responsibilities." I'm like, I don't even know what that means. That's so ridiculous. You don't work hard because you don't have a good work ethic. So, you know, pursue your dreams. Don't lose sight of what's important to you. You'll know what you can handle and what you can't handle, but it's not forever. You got a lot of guys and girls your age that go out there and find their way and work real hard for a few years and develop a crazy, ridiculous life forever. So.
Yeah, there's a window of that sacrifice. I had to move away from my family a couple of times, and I moved single. My partner would say I moved with my support group because he had a wife and kids, and I was moving by myself. Fortunately, at one point, my sister moved down to Marion, and I came from a close-knit family. So for a while, I hated Sundays because Sunday was family day. And time went on. Maybe I became a little bit of a workaholic, but eventually they moved to Florida. I have family down there, and now we have our Sunday dinners, and my mom winters with me, so that opened the door for her quality of life. I would never have thought that. So there's an exchange rate, but if you're looking, as this lady said, long-term, well worth it.
Okay, we are out of time, so I would ask you to join me in thanking very much our guest today.